Pro et Contra.
Most important updates are coming from Romania. On this video, for example, we can see another redeployment of forces somewhere in Moldova from one side to another, probably in the direction of the Romanian-Ukrainian or Moldovan border. As you can see on the video, there are lots of tanks, armored vehicles, personnel carriers, engineering equipment. And the most important thing is that Romania is getting prepared for the invasion on the territory of Ukraine. Today we got another interesting document. Romania and NATO are preparing for active actions in Ukraine and Moldova. The Romanian Minister of Defense has submitted to a public hearing a bill on the national defense, which for the first time in history provides the legal power for the president to use armed forces outside the country to protect its citizens from hybrid threats. About citizens, very interesting statistic information. According to Romanian statistics, more than 600,000 Moldovans are Romanian citizenship. In addition, there are around more than 100,000 ethnic Romanians may live who are probably also holders of Romanian citizenship on the territory of Ukraine. So this is Romania, this is Romania, this is Moldova, and there are around 600,000 Romanians. And when talking about Ukraine in the document, in that article, probably the author was talking about this part of Ukraine where there are also a lot of ethnic let's say Romanians, more than 100,000. So based on this article, we can make a conclusion that NATO countries, Romania to be more precise, is getting ready to start intervention in Ukraine with the purpose to establish control over Moldova completely and over this part of Ukraine. Furthermore, I'll remind you that France also is willing to send forces on Ukraine, and according to information we have, first France is going to redeploy forces in Romania and Moldova, and with the purpose, in case if everything goes wrong, to start offensive operation and to enter Odessa region. So now we see the first ally, the first alliance of, let's say, south western part of Ukraine. We're talking about Romania and France, because probably they're going to work, they're going to coordinate their actions, and they're going to work together. Very likely soon, maybe in a month or two, we're going to receive information about another alliance between, let's say, United Kingdom, probably in the Baltic states or something like this, or maybe Poland, also Poland, and the forces of these countries very likely are going to start operation in the western part of Ukraine. But for now we haven't received such updates, but very likely we are going to see some. Also, we have more updates about Kyiv. As you know, there are currently president elections in the United States of America. That's probably Trump is going to win them. So anyway, the United States and other Western countries may transfer the contact group of Ukrainian defense issues under NATO control so that Kyiv receives weapons even if Trump is re-elected. So this is a position of Politico. So this is a smart step from their side. As I understand, the NATO countries are planning, and they have some certain plans for the military activity on the 2025 already. Now let's move to the situation on the ground. We have lots of very interesting updates, and probably the most important update is coming from Crimea. According to the Ukrainian special sources, according to special, let's say, forces, they're saying that Crimean bridge will be destroyed in the first half of 2024. A high-ranking official of, let's say, main intelligence service of Ukraine told to The Guardian. So very likely, but regarding this report about destroyed Crimean bridge, currently it doesn't matter, it's going to be just a media victory. I'll remind you that the Russians have already finished the building of the, let's say, the railways between Rostov-on-Don, Mariupol, Berdyansk, Melitopol, and then to Crimea. So the Russians have already secured their supply and support of the region, and the Russians don't need the Crimean bridge anymore, at least when talking about military perspective. Maybe for civilians it's going to be a little bit problematic to use the road, but anyway, this is better, of course, than nothing. Now let's move to the situation on the ground, and first we're going to talk about Robotyne. If you remember, just yesterday in the evening I pointed your attention that there were a lot of FPV drone strikes of the armed forces of Ukraine in the area between Kopony, Rovno and Chistopilye, and I told you that very likely soon we're gonna see some updates about the Russian attack towards Robotyne, Novodanilovka area. And today we got some confirmation, some some not geolocations, but some confirmations from different mappers. And according to information we have, during the previous 24 hours, the Russians conducted an offensive operation exactly on the direction we were talking about. And as a result of offensive, the Russians managed to establish control over these fields. For now, we still haven't received any geolocated proofs or, let's say, videos. But anyway, this is what happened during the previous day. And very likely the Russians will continue their movements. And as you can see that currently, if this information is correct, the distance between Russian positions and road TO408 is possibly more or less 1 kilometer. So the situation for the Ukrainians on Zaporozhye direction is getting worse and worse. Now we are moving further to South Donetsk direction, to the Vremivka tactical bridgehead. The Ministry of Defense of Russian Federation published another video of Russian attack from Priutino towards the north in direction of Novodarivka and Rovnopol. Currently we don't know the results of that attack. There were lots of tanks and armored vehicles involved in that operation. Maybe the Russians managed to capture some territories, but for now we don't have updates. Furthermore, the Russians, today the Ukrainian sources published additional videos of Russian attacks that took place during the previous few days. Most of those attacks were repelled by the Ukrainians, and so as I understand, the Russians will continue their movements with the purpose to restore control over Urozhaina and Staromayorskaya. We haven't received anything from Novomikhailivka, just another video of batch of prisoners of war from the Ukrainian side. And now we're moving to probably the most important area of the previous night, is Avdiivka, Tonenka, Orlovka, Semyonovka, Berdychi, Pervomayskaya direction. We have, as you can see, lots of icons with the flags. For now, we still haven't received even a single geolocated confirmation of further Russian progress, but we have a lot of posts from the sources on the ground. According to information we have, the Russians managed during the previous 24 hours, so 48 hours, to establish complete control over Pervomayskaya and to take under control the last buildings along the Naberezhnaya Street. And now the Russians have possibilities to move further to Pershatravneva Street of Pervomayskaya on the northwestern part. Even furthermore, the Russians can attack using the same road. There are small local roads in direction of Yasnobrodovka, so something like to try to encircle the Ukrainians or to attack the Ukrainian forces to the southern flank. Interesting details are coming from the area between Umanskaya, Tonenka and Orlovka triangle. According to information we have, according to different mappers, the Russians managed to improve their positions along Durna River, and currently there are no more Ukrainian positions on this side of Durna River, so everything here is already under the Russian control. The Russians are digging in deeper, making, let's say, a securing process, and the Russians are preparing for further movements. Furthermore, the sources are saying that the Russians crossed the Durna River and started movement along the road between Semyonovka and Umanska, and the Russians managed to achieve significant results. So, based on different mappers, the Russians have already bypassed this small town Pansky. This is it, and currently, according to some different mappers, without geolocated confirmations, this is approximately the Russian control on the direction. Further to the west, there is a Ukrainian defense belt, very powerful and fortified stronghold area, and that the Russians probably need to spend some time before they're able to crack the area and then to move further to Umanska. Anyway, we see that the Russians now have possibilities to storm Umanska at least from two directions, from the west and from the southwest. We haven't received anything from Berdychi, as well as no reports and no confirmation of that the Russians managed to establish complete control over the village. If you remember, yesterday we discussed the multiple launch rocket strike in the area. Reliable mappers haven't confirmed this information, so for now we're keeping this area as is, but the Russian sources continue saying that the fields, the Berdychi itself fields, currently are cleared out of Ukrainian forces. They were forced to fall back towards the fields and the tree lines to the west and to the north, but without any geolocations. For now we are going to keep the area as is until we receive more reliable updates. Now we are moving to Chasiv Yar. We have additional reports, additional information from the area. The Russian sources published the area of possible base of NATO officers in the vicinity of Chasiv Yar. This is the area. If you remember, a few days ago, to be more precisely in March, we got a report that the Russians managed to discover and to destroy the NATO base in Chasiv Yar, and as a result of that strike, the Polish brigadier general was allegedly one of those who were buried under the ruins of the strike. And furthermore, later, to more precisely on the 31st of March, the Russian sources published the video of that's very likely of that strike. So in this video, for example, we can see the stronghold, this is the base, and this is the strike. Currently, from this angle, it's very difficult to understand what kind of weapon the Russians were using. Maybe that was Iskander or Fab arrived in the area, but so this is like probably the strike when the Polish general was hit, NATO Polish general was hit in the area. Furthermore, during the previous 24 hours, the Russians were mainly focused on destroying the pontoon bridges and the roads that Ukrainians were using through Seversky Donetsk-Donbass Canal, and the Russians, as I understand, very likely managed to cut the supply between let's say this side, Russian side of canal, with Ukrainian one. So that's why but there are still a lot of Ukrainians in the area. I'll show you on a map for better understanding. Currently, I'm not saying about tens of thousands, but probably a few thousand soldiers are currently located on this side of Seversky Donetsk-Donbass Canal, and now the Ukrainians started to run the evacuation mission, and to do this because of the fact that the let's say the main supply roads were destroyed, the Ukrainians start using helicopters for evacuation. And today the Russian sources published the video of another destroyed helicopter of armed forces of Ukraine that Ukrainians were trying to use for evacuation let's say process from the western part of Ivanovska, where the Russians conducting successfully offensive operation during the previous days. Furthermore, we got additional updates from the territory. According to the Russian sources, they managed also to enter the forest and the tree lines to the west of the village. So according to some reliable mappers, this is approximately the current situation in the area. So the Russians entered the forest, they managed to get let's say to hide themselves from the Ukrainian drones, and of course the Russians will continue movements further to the west in direction of Seversky Donetsk-Donbass Canal. So this is the situation on the Chasov Yar direction. During the previous night, we have received some updates from Bilogorovka. As we discussed, the Russians attacked to the west. We have some confirmations from at least Syriac map. He also confirmed this information. And we have another few more videos of FPV drone strikes of armed forces of Russian Federation in the north along the Seversky Donetsk-Donbass river and in the vicinity of the Bilogorovka landfill. For now, no more updates about further progress on the ground. And the Ukrainians continue attacking the Russian forces in the vicinity of Crimean. I'll remind you just once again that if we increase the numbers of this since the beginning of March, we see the complete Ukrainian superiority of FPV drone strikes in the area, and we understand that currently the situation for the Russians in this part of the front line is very difficult. We have no updates from the north in Kupiansk direction, and just one report from the sources on the ground that combat operation intensified in the Kupiansk direction west of Svatova. So this is Svatov, and according to some sources, the Russians launched an offensive operation, or maybe started some reconnaissance in combat or in force towards Oskol river. Probably today we're going to receive some updates and more details about these attacks. And